I think it was 3 years ago when we were celebrating confirmation in my parish that I went downstairs before the Mass to talk to the young people and kind of looked at the cards where they had their confirmation name written down for the Archbishop. And there was one young man who I taught in high school. I looked at his card and it said, Expeditus. And it made me angry because I said, you and I both know there's no Saint Expeditus. And if this is just sort of a joke to make the Archbishop look silly, it's not a very funny joke. So I almost made him pick another name. And he pleaded with me, he says, there is a Saint Expeditus. Sure enough, after the confirmation, I looked it up in Delaney's Dictionary of the Saints. He was right. There is a Saint Expeditus. And this is what the dictionary says about this saint. Expeditus, no date known. Mentioned in the Roman martyrology as one of the group of martyrs who were executed in Armenia, there is no proof he ever really existed. The popular devotion to him may have mistakenly developed when a crate of holy relics from the catacombs in Rome were sent to a convent in Paris and were mistakenly identified by the recipients as Saint Expeditus by the word expeditio written on the crate. They began to propagate devotion to this imagined saint as a saint to be invoked to expedite matters, and the cult soon spread. His date is April 19th. So I asked this young man, why would you pick such an obscure saint who probably never existed as your confirmation name? It's because Expeditus is the patron saint of procrastinators. And he told me I have a problem with that, so I need his help. Procrastination is the issue in today's gospel. Jesus sounds rather harsh. Let the dead bury their dead. And what this is, Luke is using a literary device called a prophetic injunction. Takes things to sort of an extreme, not meant to be taken literally, but to be taken seriously. Jesus calls 3 people to follow him, and all 3 have excuses. I'll do it later on, after I do some other things. Sometimes we do the same thing. You know, the Lord is calling us to the next step in discipleship. And we say, well, later on, I will forgive somebody who hurt me when I feel like it. Or later on, I will find time daily to pray when I'm not doing so much research. Or later on, I'll become generous when I'm making more money. We put off what the Lord is asking of us to do today. The other night when I was looking through this Delaney's Book of the Saints, I started reading through it. I had not opened it for a while. And it struck me that there's so many different paths to holiness. You know, it's a pretty thick book of all these different saints, many of them obscure. But if you look at the lives of the saints, they're really very different. Some, like Saint Therese of Lisieux, lived a contemplative life of prayer, apart from the world. And some, like St. Vincent de Paul, lived an active life of service to the poor. Some, like St. Gregory the Great, provided amazing leadership to the church in a time of crisis. Some, like my favorite saint, St. Catherine Drexel, are known for amazing generosity. And some, like our own St. Thomas Aquinas, excelled in the intellectual life. There's such diversity among the people we recognize as saints of our tradition. And yet all of those saints in that big, thick book have one thing in common. They're not mediocre. They're not half-hearted. They're not lukewarm. What all the saints have in common is that they were bold. They were bold in what they did. That is seen in that first reading, which I think is a great story about Elijah calls Elisha to become his successor as a prophet. Elisha, who is a farmer, takes his plow, chops it up and burns it. Then he takes the oxen and he slaughters all of his oxen. In other words, he's saying, once I make a decision for God, I can't go back. I won't go back to an old way of life. You know, he's bold in his decision to do what God asked him to do. Conversion for most of us is not about going from being bad to being good. Conversion for most of us is about going from being good to being great. Throughout our life, Jesus is calling us to something more, to not being so hesitant, but to be bold, to take some risk for the kingdom. He's calling us to take the next step. If we do, we will lose control over our life. And we'll be led to places we never planned to go. And we also will experience a lot more joy in our life. But if we procrastinate, put it off, find excuses, we will spend the rest of our lives standing on one leg, going nowhere. And so, Saint Expeditius, if you exist, pray for us.